Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene ran and went to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and told them, "They have taken the Lord from the tomb, and we do not know where they put him." So Peter and the other disciple went out and came to the tomb. They both ran, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and arrived at the tomb first. He bent down and saw the burial cloths there, but he did not go in. When Simon Peter arrived after him, he went into the tomb and saw the burial cloths there, and the cloth that had covered his head, not with the burial cloths, but rolled up in a separate place. Then the other disciple also went in, the one who arrived at the tomb first, and he saw and believed. The Gospel of the Lord.
On this feast of St. John the Evangelist, his gospel seems the most theologically advanced and deep, and it seems to be the most mystical and seemingly most distant from a real good description of who Jesus is. That's at first impression. And then you look at this epistle. What was from the beginning, what we have seen. He's very visceral. What we have looked upon, and what we have touched with our hands concerning the word of life. He brings you right into the manger with this language that describes the way that we handle a newborn, doesn't it? How a newborn has to be held and touched and embraced, washed, changed, fed, nursed. All these things make the contact so physical. And so this is the difference between a person who says prayers and prays. A person who prays wants to enter into a deeper contact with Jesus. And so perhaps what is not attainable to the senses, at least the physical senses, in meditation, in the depths of prayer, instead of just reading the gospel, to look at it and let it fill my mind and my heart. These are things that bring fleshy encounters with Jesus. And perhaps the most of our imagination spent even in a mystical way when we receive communion and claim to be receiving the body, the blood, the soul, and divinity of Jesus. How much more visceral can you get than that? Such intimacy can never be exhausted. I was thinking this morning of a movie when I was meditating on this. Do you remember anybody see the movie Good Will Hunting? And there's a point in the movie where Robin Williams, he's the therapist for this lost young man, and he starts sharing the deep, dark secrets of his relationship with his wife. And he said, and he talks about how, he says, you just don't do that on an incidental relationship. And he talked about how he suffered with her in her sickness and her death. You know, that kind of depth of contact, real intimacy, is never exhausted. It's the stuff that is made of when a couple of 60 years finds that they're more in love with each other and they see more in each other after all that passing of time than they had seen in the first instance of their relationship. It seems to be, and you look at this with the texture of a baby, this God entering into our reality to be held, to be touched, to be embraced, and to be fed. Yes, he even asked for it from the cross. I thirst, because he thirsts for you. And so John goes a little further in describing this now when he gets to the gospel. He gets to the mystical. Because what he first describes in this epistle as so tangible, now we're told that when he sees the empty tomb, the remaining burial clothes, and yet no body, he believes even more. Because his relationship with Jesus has gone far beyond a mere tactile relationship. It's funny, that irony, that in not seeing now, he believes. That's what he's trying to say. And so now, this relationship is much more than physical, this relationship that he has with Jesus. And again, you look at a married couple advanced in years, you know that their relationship, if they've gone that long and they still have that glimmer in their eye, it's way beyond the physical relationship. It's mystical. This is what we call soulmates. I would caution an engaged couple from saying, this is my soulmate. You haven't done that yet. You haven't descended yet into the depths of that other person to really be able to say that. We have to be careful. And so it is with Jesus. But the more we pray, the more we're sensitive to the sacraments, the more we do descend into the depths of a relationship with him. And it's funny that an older married couple, when one of them dies, the surviving one begins to long even more for what they can't see. And so it becomes not uncommon that the survivor would soon afterwards die in a sense of loneliness, for longing and wanting to be with the one they cannot see anymore. And so there's something deeply sacramental now about that marriage that has dissolved into something that sees what is seen and now sees what is unseen. And it becomes the testimony of what our relationship with Jesus is. Having attended to many people dying, they start pining for what they can't see. Jesus. That's the fruit of a life of grace and being at the threshold of what everyone fears. You're on the precipice and you long to see, not to fall into a crevasse, but to be raised up from the grave, which is what John saw, from the baby to the glory of God.
Regina Celi, let our